My name is Mary DeLuca, and I am presenting my primary sources for History 325, Immigration and Ethnicity. When I consider the legacy of immigration, I think back to some of the quotes from our founding fathers. It is no surprise that immigration woes plague us today. Even our founding fathers grappled with the arrival of the unknown, unvetted, and unfamiliar immigrant. This set the tone for centuries of discrimination based on skin color, faith, and assimilability in law and practice. My first primary source is the 1852 advertisement for a new newspaper called American Patriot. The graphic details the hostility of nativists towards Irish immigrants. The nativists carry banners saying, "None but America shall rule. Beware of foreign influence." The Irish, on the other hand, are depicted as drunk and bickering. Shows the Vatican in the background, as well as a hand coming down, choking the papacy. The Irish carry slogans that say, "Americans shan't rule us." And this language underneath the picture talks about their tenets, their principles, and sets a stage kind of for the American Party and the Know-Nothings. My next primary source is from the Library of Congress. It's a short film that shows immigrants arriving to Ellis Island. The steamboat that carries them is full of immigrants from different nationalities. You can watch them disembark and head off to processing. This primary source is physicians examining a group of Jewish immigrants at Ellis Island. You notice there's no privacy. They're all examined in a room together. There is a Hebrew eye chart in the background. Many immigrants didn't make it past the physical and were put in quarantine for extended periods of time, while others were deported. This is a photograph from the Library of Congress showing an Italian class receiving instruction in English and citizenship. The Department of Labor attempted to facilitate the assimilation of Italians by teaching English and citizenship. The photograph was taken at the YMCA in Newark, New Jersey. Forced assimilation occurred throughout the country as progressives wanted to rid new arrivals of their ethnic identity. Groups like the YMCA, though, were trying to help immigrants, keep them from being exploited, help them become citizens, teaching them how to manage in American society. Here's a report taken from the Congressional Record of the 57th Congress, Regulation of Immigration. It was a hearing and testimony from both anti-immigration proponents and advocates for immigration rights. The reason for this was because it was believed that the immigration laws in place weren't strong enough. It really was that it wasn't strong enough to keep out more Italians, Germans, Russians, Eastern Europeans, and Jews. The Wartime Treatment Studies Act was a report I found as a congressional record of the 111th Congress, and it discusses the unfair treatment of German, Italian, Hungarian, Romanian, and Bulgarian immigrants, as well as European, Latin American, and Jewish refugees during World War II. Thousands were arrested or interned, and some were detained for years after the war ended. Many were deported, and among those were American-born children. The government also used some of these deportations to trade for Americans that were held in European countries. My final primary source is the Wartime Violation of Italian Civil Liberties Act. This report from the Congressional Record of the 160th Congress talks about the civil rights violations of more than 600,000 Italian Americans during World War II. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Japanese Americans, German Americans, and Italian Americans were branded as enemy aliens, and as such they were treated with discrimination, with civil rights violations. This report talks about Italian Americans that were subjected to internment, forced relocation, curfews, restricted travel. Many Italians could not travel far enough to get to their jobs. If they were fishermen, they couldn't take their boats out into the water. There were also raids and confiscations of personal property, including radios and photographic equipment. It is here that I'm going to talk about my paper. I have decided to talk about wartime violations during World War II against the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, the Jews, especially Jewish refugees. It's hard to balance the arguments of the government that they were trying to protect America, at the same time allowing such abuses to occur. So I hope that my paper will explore that a little bit deeper and give me some understanding as well as anyone who reads it. Thank you.